Entire cities now rest silently on the ocean floor. This is the story of ancient underwater civilizations lost to the rising seas after the last ice age. By the end of this journey, you will understand how real societies vanished and what their fate reveals about our own world. We will uncover how a land bridge connecting continents became a seabed and investigate a legendary city said to have been reclaimed by the ocean. This hidden chapter of human history challenges everything we know about time and our place on this planet. What forgotten story from the deep speaks most to you that deep freeze gave way to a world in flux? For thousands of years, colossal ice sheets, some over a mile thick, blanketed entire continents. Then the climate shifted. As temperatures slowly climbed, these gargantuan reservoirs of frozen water began to liquefy, pouring their contents back into the world's oceans. This was not a single flood but a relentless, creeping rise that played out over centuries. A planetary transformation so gradual it would have been almost imperceptible within a single human lifetime, yet utterly unstoppable across generations. This process is known as eustatic sea level change, a term scientists use to describe a shift in the total volume of the ocean itself. It was not that the land was sinking, but that the sea was genuinely, materially growing, fed by the meltwater of continents. The global ocean rose by nearly 400 feet, swallowing millions of square miles of coastline. The rate of this change, however, was not uniform everywhere. In some regions, the land, once crushed downward by the immense weight of the ice, was now rebounding upward, a slow spring back that complicated the encroaching waters. In other places far from the ice, the land was stable, and the sea's advance was direct and absolute. This is the essential backdrop to our mystery. For the people living along those ancient, fertile shorelines, the ocean was a constant, creeping companion. A fishing village might find itself a little closer to the water each year. A sacred spring near the beach might turn brackish with salt. Generations would tell stories of the old village site, now just a memory beneath the waves. The loss was so slow it was woven into the fabric of their myths and their oral histories, a long goodbye to lands that had nurtured them for millennia. This global event set the stage for a profound cultural disappearance, hiding the evidence of entire societies under the calm surface of the sea. What stories might those lost shores tell? If we could only hear them, one of the most dramatic maps of ancient Europe cannot be drawn on any modern chart, because its entire territory lies beneath the North Sea. This was Doggerland, a vast, low-lying plain that once stretched from the British Isles to the Netherlands and Denmark, a verdant landscape of rolling hills, forested valleys, and meandering rivers. For thousands of years, it was home to Mesolithic hunter-gatherers who tracked animals across its grassy expanses and fished in its abundant waterways. Their world was not a narrow land bridge but a continent in its own right, a thriving heartland that connected populations rather than dividing them. The first clues to its existence did not come from archaeologists with trowels, but from fishermen trawling the seabed far from any shore. Their nets would occasionally haul up more than fish, bringing to the surface the bones of mammoths, lions, and other long-extinct land animals, along with strangely worked flints and even fragments of human tools. These artifacts were a ghostly testimony, messages from a sunken world. Scientists now use seismic mapping technology, similar to an ultrasound for the Earth, to visualize this lost landscape buried under layers of sediment. The scans reveal a stunningly detailed topography, ancient river channels snaking across the plains, and the outlines of great lakes that once reflected the sky. We can trace the footsteps of its inhabitants not in the soil but in the silt. They left behind finely crafted harpoons for hunting, adzes for woodworking, and the evidence of seasonal camps. Theirs was a rich culture perfectly adapted to a fertile land, but the same meltwater that was reshaping the globe was also filling the North Sea basin. The change here was relentless. The sea did not arrive as a single catastrophic wave, but as a gradual, unstoppable encroachment. Saltwater would have first intruded into the freshwater marshes, killing the reeds and driving away the game. Forests would have become swamps and then open water. The high grounds became islands and then shoals and then vanished entirely. The people of Doggerland were forced to retreat generation after generation, watching their ancestral hunting grounds shrink and then disappear forever beneath the waves. The final submersion of its last remaining island, around 6,000 years ago, marked the complete loss of a human homeland. The story of Doggerland is a profound case study of how a vast and populated territory can be utterly transformed into a seabed, its history written only in the sediment and stone recovered from the dark. This disappearance of an entire world of hunter-gatherers sets the stage for an even more startling concept: the loss of something we would recognize as a city. Far from the cold waters of the North Sea, another legend of the deep persists in the warm tides off India's western coast. Here, ancient Sanskrit epics like the Mahabharata tell of Dwarka, a magnificent city of gold and silver, a divine fortress built by Lord Krishna himself. The texts describe a city of unparalleled splendor with majestic gates, vast courtyards, and countless palaces. Yet its fate was sealed when, following Krishna's departure from the world, the glorious Dwarka was consumed by the ocean. For centuries, this was considered a powerful myth, a symbolic story from a sacred text. But what if the waves were hiding a tangible truth? Marine archaeologists diving near the modern coastal town of Dwarka began to find something extraordinary. Beneath the seabed, they uncovered the remnants of a once great settlement. Massive stone blocks, some weighing several tons, were found neatly arranged, suggesting fortified walls and large foundations. They recovered ancient pottery, intricately carved stone artifacts, and even what appear to be stone anchors for seafaring vessels, all lying in silent testimony on the ocean floor. The layout of these submerged structures, with their grand scale and evidence of advanced planning, seems to echo the legendary descriptions of a prosperous, well-defended port city. This discovery sits at the heart of a fascinating and ongoing debate. The central question is one of time. Scientific dating of the artifacts and structures places them at various ancient periods, with some materials suggesting an age of around 3,500 years, while others may be even older. This timeline does not always align perfectly with the traditional dates suggested for the events of the Mahabharata. For some researchers, the underwater finds are powerful corroboration, physical proof that the epic poems preserve a memory of a real, historically significant coastal city that was lost to the sea. They argue that the oral histories passed down through countless generations encoded a genuine geological catastrophe. Other scholars urge caution, viewing the correlation as less direct. They suggest the submerged city could be a later, or perhaps an earlier, important port that, over time, became associated with the mythological Dwarka of Krishna. The academic discussion continues, a careful dance between material evidence and cultural memory. Regardless of the precise interpretation, the investigation of Dwarka challenges us to reconsider the boundary between myth and history. It presents a compelling case that ancient stories of cities reclaimed by the ocean might not be mere fantasy, but could instead be the long, echoing memory of a rising sea, a trauma so profound it was woven into the very fabric of a culture's identity. This intersection of legend and archaeology in India offers a stunning perspective, yet the same pattern of a lost advanced civilization appears in a story that forms the very bedrock of Western thought. Another paradise was lost far to the east, beneath the tranquil blue surface of the Persian Gulf. This entire region was once a vast, fertile oasis, a lush basin watered by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers and their now vanished sister, a waterway scientists call the Urshat. During the last ice age, when sea levels were at their lowest, this was not a gulf at all, but a sheltered, habitable valley, a sprawling lowland larger than Great Britain. It was a verdant refuge, a potential cradle for some of the earliest human settlements, a place so idyllic in our collective imagination that some researchers suggest it could be the geographical inspiration for legends of a primordial Garden of Eden. This was the Persian Gulf Oasis. The evidence for its existence is not found in ancient texts, but deep within the earth itself. Geologists drilling core samples from the seabed have pulled up layers of mud rich with the fossils of freshwater snails and the pollen of reeds and grasses that could never survive in salt water. These are the silent witnesses to a lost world of wetlands and lagoons. Climate models reconstruct a landscape dominated by a vast freshwater lake, fed by the powerful river systems flowing from the north. This wasn't a harsh desert, but a green sanctuary, a magnet for wildlife and the hunter-gatherer communities who followed them. For thousands of years, this inland basin thrived. Then, the meltwater from the far-off glaciers finally reached its doorstep. The Indian Ocean began to pour in through the Strait of Hormuz. This was not a gentle flooding, but what scientists call a marine transgression, a rapid and relentless invasion of the sea. The salt water would have surged across the low-lying plains, contaminating the freshwater lake, swallowing the marshes, and submerging the entire basin in a geological instant, perhaps over just a few centuries. The inhabitants of this paradise faced a sudden and catastrophic upheaval. Their entire world was literally vanishing beneath their feet. Where could they go? The theory suggests they were forced to flee, dispersing in all directions to the higher ground that forms the rim of the modern Gulf. This grand, environmentally driven diaspora may have been the catalyst that seeded the surrounding regions with new populations, knowledge, and skills. The displaced peoples, carrying with them the cultural memory of a lost fertile home, could have provided the demographic spark for the rise of the first cities in Mesopotamia. The very foundations of Sumerian civilization, with its sudden flourishing of agriculture, irrigation, and urban life, may have been built by the children of a sunken world. This theory offers a breathtaking scale of loss and rebirth, where the cradle of civilization itself might have been born from the trauma of a drowned paradise. Yet not all lost cities were claimed by the sea. Some were preserved by a different and far colder force of nature. The clear blue waters off the coast of southern Laconia hold a city in suspended animation. Pavlopetri, the world's oldest known submerged city, lies just beneath the surface, its stone foundations tracing the outlines of a bustling Bronze Age port. Dating back over 5,000 years, this is not a collection of scattered ruins but a complete urban plan, a ghost map of a thriving community. Archaeologists mapping the site have found a fully realized town, with a network of streets still connecting buildings, central courtyards, and even stone-lined tombs. The layout reveals a sophisticated understanding of urban planning, with distinct residential and commercial areas organized around a natural harbor. Here, the daily life of a sophisticated maritime society is frozen in time. This was a crucial hub in a vast trading network, a place where Minoan pottery from Crete would have been unloaded, and local goods like olive oil and textiles were prepared for export. The city's design, with its clear thoroughfares and organized infrastructure, speaks to a complex, coordinated society deeply engaged with the wider Mediterranean world. Its sudden end provides a snapshot of a moment. Unlike other sites slowly claimed by rising waters, Pavlopetri likely met its fate through a combination of local geological shifts and the broader trend of sea level rise. Evidence suggests a series of earthquakes may have destabilized the land, causing it to sink abruptly. The sea did not slowly creep in over generations. It rushed to claim a city already wounded. This catastrophic submergence is what makes the site so invaluable to researchers. Because it was abandoned and not built over, Pavlopetri offers an unparalleled, undisturbed window into the Bronze Age. It is a city not lost to reconstruction, but simply given to the sea, preserving a perfect blueprint of ancient urban life. From this perfectly preserved port, we journey to another, far more mysterious complex hidden in the waters of another sea. The debate over human artistry reaches its peak off the coast of a remote Japanese island. In the deep blue waters near Yonaguni, a series of colossal stone forms rise from the seabed. These are the Yonaguni Monument, a collection of massive geometric structures featuring what look like vast terraces, sharp right angles, and towering pillars. Since a local diver first documented them in the 1980s, these formations have become one of the world's most captivating underwater mysteries, a Rorschach test for how we see the ancient past. One compelling theory suggests these are the sunken ruins of a lost civilization, a Japanese Atlantis that thrived when sea levels were much lower. Proponents of this view point to features that seem undeniably man-made. They identify what appear to be wide staircases climbing the monument's sides, perfectly circular holes that could have held wooden posts, and even a large, flat stone that some interpret as a carved human face. If this interpretation is correct, the structure could be around 10,000 years old, a relic from a time when this spot was dry land, built by a sophisticated culture whose history is completely absent from our records. Geologists, however, offer a different explanation. They argue that the sandstone in this region is naturally fractured along right angles, creating the building blocks for these forms. The powerful currents and relentless tectonic activity common in this area could have then sculpted and eroded the stone over millennia, naturally carving out the terraces, platforms, and channels we see today. They suggest that the human brain is hardwired to see patterns and familiar shapes, a phenomenon known as pareidolia, which might lead us to see a carved face or a designed staircase in a random, if spectacular, natural formation. The debate hinges on subtle details. Are those clean, 90-degree angles the result of precise tool work, or simply the product of the stone's natural cleavage planes splitting under pressure? Are the seemingly parallel surfaces and symmetrical channels evidence of planning, or the predictable result of water following the path of least resistance through soft rock? Researchers have searched for definitive proof, like clear chisel marks or artifacts buried within the structure, but such smoking guns have remained elusive. The Yonaguni Monument stands as a profound enigma, a place that challenges us to define the very boundary between a masterpiece of nature and a monument built by human hands. This uncertainty makes the next site all the more startling, for there, the human handiwork is beyond any doubt. Sonar pulses cut through the absolute darkness 2,000 feet beneath the Caribbean waves. Off the coast of Cuba, advanced equipment scanning the seabed in 2001 returned images that sent ripples through the world of underwater exploration. The readings revealed a series of colossal, geometric formations spread across a vast area. There were what appeared to be smooth, pyramidal structures and large, flat areas resembling urban plazas, all resting at a depth that defies easy explanation. The sheer scale and seemingly organized layout suggested to some a pattern that nature would be hard-pressed to create by chance. This was not a shallow reef or a simple rock outcrop. It was a complex of formations lying in the crushing deep, a place where sunlight never reaches and the pressure is immense. The immediate and obvious question was staggering. What human hands could have built something now lying under half a mile of ocean water? The depth itself is the core of the mystery. For these structures to be submerged so profoundly, they would have to be unimaginably ancient, constructed during the last ice age when global sea levels were hundreds of feet lower. This timeline would place their origin thousands of years before the pyramids of Giza were even conceived, potentially rewriting the entire narrative of early human civilization in the Americas. Investigating such a site, however, presents almost insurmountable challenges. Sending manned submersibles to that depth is a dangerous and enormously expensive endeavor, limiting detailed on-site investigation. The extreme pressure, perpetual darkness, and sediment cover make it difficult to gather the kind of clear, physical evidence needed to move the discovery from a tantalizing anomaly to a confirmed archaeological site. Because of these limitations, the scientific community remains largely skeptical. Geologists point out that the Earth is capable of producing remarkably regular formations through natural processes. They suggest the smooth, block-like shapes could be the result of jointed bedrock, where natural fractures in the stone create clean, geometric lines that can look deceptively architectural. Without clear tool marks, artifacts, or other signs of human activity recovered from the site itself, most researchers classify the Cuban formations as a fascinating example of a natural geological phenomenon. Yet the possibility, however remote, continues to captivate the imagination. It invites us to ask profound questions about human history. Could there have been a sophisticated culture, now completely lost to time, that flourished on land now drowned by the post-Ice Age seas? The Cuban deep water mystery stands as a powerful symbol of how much of our own planet remains unexplored and how many chapters of the human story may still be hidden in the abyss. From these profound, dark depths, our search for lost cities brings us back into the light, to a site so clear and shallow you could almost touch its history. The silent stones of Atlit Yam hold a story 9,000 years old. Just off the coast of modern Israel, this pre-pottery Neolithic village rests perfectly preserved on the seafloor, a complete snapshot of a sophisticated community that thrived before the waves took it. Here, archaeologists have mapped out the foundations of stone houses, creating a clear neighborhood plan of one of the world's oldest known submerged settlements. But the most haunting discovery was a semicircle of massive stones, a ritual installation standing with quiet purpose on the seabed, suggesting a rich spiritual life for these ancient people. Further study of the human remains found at the site revealed something else entirely, the earliest known evidence of tuberculosis. This finding offers a profound insight into the health challenges of our earliest ancestors, reshaping our understanding of ancient community life and the hardships they faced together. This village's true genius, however, lies in its confrontation with a changing world. The inhabitants of Atlit Yam were master engineers of their environment, constructing sophisticated, stone-lined wells that tapped directly into the freshwater aquifer beneath their village. This was a brilliant solution, a way to secure a vital resource right at their doorstep. For generations, this system worked perfectly. But then, the same global process that drowned Doggerland and the Persian Gulf Oasis began to exert its slow, inexorable pressure here. As sea levels continued their relentless climb, salt water started to infiltrate the coastal aquifer. The very wells that had sustained the community began to turn brackish. The freshwater they depended on was becoming poisoned by the encroaching sea. The end of Atlit Yam was not marked by a single storm or earthquake. Instead, the evidence points to a gradual abandonment, a slow-motion exodus forced by an environmental problem they could not solve. Life became a constant struggle as their primary water source failed them. This was a community that understood its land intimately, that had the skill to engineer complex water systems, yet they were ultimately powerless against a global climatic shift that played out over centuries. Their story is a poignant lesson in resilience and adaptation, showing that a society's end can come not with a bang, but with the quiet, creeping salination of a well. This village's long goodbye to its home stands in stark contrast to another culture that learned to live with the water for thousands of years. While the great Maya cities of the interior are famed for their jungle temples, their story also extends into the silent world beneath the Caribbean Sea. Along the coast of Quintana Roo in Mexico, the waves now hide a different kind of Maya achievement, the vital ports and salt works that fueled their inland empires. These were not ceremonial centers, but the beating heart of Maya commerce, where the practical business of trade and survival played out. Archaeologists diving in these clear, shallow waters have mapped submerged structures, old shorelines, and even ancient freshwater sinkholes called cenotes that once served as navigational aids and water sources for coastal traders. The Maya were masterful in their adaptation to this environment, building a maritime economy that stretched along hundreds of miles of coastline. They operated extensive salt pans, evaporating seawater to produce a commodity as essential as gold for preserving food and sustaining a large population. Their large, seaworthy canoes would have moved this salt, along with honey, cotton, and obsidian, between a network of ports connecting the highland cities to the wider world. This sophisticated coastal infrastructure, however, was uniquely vulnerable. The same rising sea levels that reshaped coastlines globally were at work here, but their impact was amplified by a local geological phenomenon. The entire Yucatan Peninsula is a vast, porous limestone shelf, and its weight causes it to sink very slowly over time, a process known as subsidence. The combination of a genuinely rising ocean and a gradually sinking coastline created a perfect storm for these low-lying areas. The sea did not just advance, it consumed, swallowing docks, flooding salt production sites, and submerging the very foundations of economic life. The loss was likely a slow, generational retreat from the water's edge. A salt works that had been in a family for centuries would eventually become too frequently flooded to be practical. A trading pier might need to be rebuilt farther inland, only to be abandoned again a few generations later. This forced a continuous, costly adaptation, a long-term struggle against an inexorable force. The underwater evidence provides a poignant record of this struggle, showing how a brilliant civilization negotiated its relationship with a changing world, only to have key chapters of that story claimed by the sea. This complex narrative of a coastal culture adapting to environmental shifts brings our journey full circle, back to the ancient waters of the Mediterranean. The warm, shallow waters off the coast of Italy hide a different kind of ghost. Here, in the submerged archaeological park of Baiae, the grandeur of ancient Rome lies open to the sky, its marble floors and intricate mosaics now home to darting fish and slow-moving seagrass. This was no ordinary city, but the Las Vegas of the Roman Empire, a luxurious resort where emperors like Nero and Julius Caesar built sprawling villas to escape the politics of the capital. Its streets once echoed with the sounds of lavish parties and political intrigue, a place of legendary hedonism where the elite came to indulge. The cause of its descent into the sea was not a single cataclysm, but a slow, geological sigh known as volcanic bradysism. This complex process, driven by the immense volcanic activity of the nearby Campi Flegrei caldera, causes the land to gradually sink and rise over centuries as underground magma chambers shift and hydrothermal fluids circulate. At Baiae, the sinking won out, and the land began a slow, relentless drop, inch by inch over hundreds of years. This gradual subsidence, combined with the broader, post-Ice Age rise in sea levels, allowed the Mediterranean to calmly and methodically reclaim the city's most valuable waterfront properties. The result is an underwater museum of breathtaking preservation. Divers can glide over the stunning black and white mosaic floors of a banquet hall, swim through the colonnaded remains of a sprawling thermal bath complex, and hover beside statues of gods and statesmen that still stand on their pedestals, gazing eternally into the blue haze. The slow-motion nature of this submergence meant there was no violent destruction, no rubble from a sudden collapse. Instead, the sea gently enveloped the city, protecting its artistic treasures under a blanket of sediment and water, freezing a moment of Roman opulence in time. The fate of Baiae is a powerful reminder that not all lost underwater cities belong to the shadowy depths of prehistory. This is a site with a rich and detailed historical record, its story documented in the writings of Seneca and Pliny the Elder. We know the names of the people who walked these now sunken streets. This more recent submergence creates a direct, tangible bridge between our world and the ancient past, forcing us to confront a continuous pattern of coastal loss. The same geological and climatic forces that claimed Baiae are still at work today, threatening coastal heritage sites across the globe, a silent, ongoing process that connects the fate of a Roman pleasure palace to our own vulnerable shores. These silent cities beneath the waves do not give up their secrets easily. Uncovering them requires a sophisticated toolkit, a blend of physics, engineering, and meticulous detective work that allows us to see through the deep. The first step in this process often begins not with a dive, but with a detailed scan of the seabed from the surface. Researchers deploy instruments like side-scan sonar, which works by sending out fan-shaped pulses of sound. These acoustic waves travel down through the water and bounce off the seafloor, and by measuring the intensity of the returning echoes, the system can create a detailed, almost photographic image of the bottom. A strong echo from a hard object like a stone wall appears dark, while a softer sediment bottom returns a weaker signal and shows up lighter. This technology can map vast areas, revealing the subtle geometric patterns of a forgotten settlement or the straight lines of a sunken road hidden under silt and sand. To peer even deeper, scientists use a tool called a sub-bottom profiler. This device uses lower-frequency sound waves that can actually penetrate the seabed, revealing layers of sediment and the outlines of structures buried beneath. It is like taking an X-ray of the ocean floor, uncovering the ghostly foundations of a village or the ancient course of a river channel now entombed in mud. Another crucial instrument is the magnetometer, which measures tiny variations in the Earth's magnetic field. When ancient hearths were used or metals were worked, the intense heat would subtly alter the magnetic minerals in the soil, creating an anomaly. A magnetometer towed behind a boat can detect these faint, localized magnetic signatures, pinpointing the locations of past human activity invisible to the eye. These remote sensing techniques create a map of potential, guiding archaeologists to the most promising sites for physical investigation. The real challenge begins when divers descend to these coordinates. Underwater excavation is a painstaking ballet of precision and patience. Working against currents and limited visibility, archaeologists cannot simply dig. They use a gentle suction device called an airlift, which acts like an underwater vacuum cleaner to carefully remove layers of sediment, exposing artifacts without damaging them. Every object, no matter how small, is meticulously plotted in 3 dimensions using a grid system, its position recorded to reconstruct the context of its final resting place. One of the great paradoxes of these submerged sites is their remarkable preservation. While saltwater and marine organisms can quickly destroy iron and other metals, the cold, dark, oxygen-poor environment at the bottom can be a perfect conservator for organic materials that would have vanished on land. Wooden tools, woven baskets, and even food remains can survive for thousands of years, sealed in a watery time capsule. This presents both an opportunity and a challenge. Once these fragile objects are brought to the surface, they must be immediately stabilized in conservation labs to prevent them from disintegrating upon exposure to air. Dating these finds is its own rigorous science. Researchers might use radiocarbon dating on a piece of wood or bone to determine its age, or analyze the styles of pottery and tools, comparing them to known sequences from terrestrial sites. Each piece of evidence is a clue, and the final interpretation is a careful puzzle, built from mapping, excavation, preservation, and dating. This entire scientific process transforms a legend into a data point, and a mysterious sonar reading into a chapter of human history. It is through this meticulous work that the whispers from the deep finally find their voice. A profound echo resonates across the earliest human stories, from the deserts of Mesopotamia to the highlands of the Americas. It is the story of a great flood, a deluge sent by displeased gods to wash the world clean. The oldest known version comes from the Epic of Gilgamesh, where the hero Utnapishtim is instructed to build a vast boat to save his family and the seed of all living things. A strikingly similar narrative appears in the biblical book of Genesis with Noah and his ark, yet the pattern does not stop there. The ancient Greeks told of Deucalion, who survived a flood sent by Zeus. In the Americas, the Maya Popolvuh describes a world destroyed by a great inundation, while indigenous tribes from the Pacific northwest to the Andes have their own powerful flood traditions. The sheer geographic spread of these stories is itself a powerful clue. It seems that nearly every corner of the globe, from the coast to the mountaintop, carries a memory of overwhelming waters. What could possibly explain such a universal theme? The answer may lie not in shared theology, but in shared geology. These myths could be the long, cultural shadows cast by a real global event, the traumatic and rapid rise in sea levels that reshaped our coastlines as the last ice age receded. For the communities living on those fertile, vulnerable shores, the experience would have been catastrophic and absolute. The land that provided their food, their homes, and their sacred sites was simply vanishing, consumed by a force they could not fight. The psychological impact of such a loss would have been seared into collective memory, a story told and retold for generations. Over centuries, the specific historical event may have transformed, acquiring divine characters and moral lessons, yet the core truth remained: a world drowned. The common elements are telling: a chosen survivor, a vessel for salvation, and the sending out of a bird to find dry land. These are not the details of a local river flood, but the signature of a marine incursion, a permanent loss of territory to the sea. These flood myths, therefore, may be far more than simple fables. They could be humanity's oldest historical records, a profound form of oral history that encoded a genuine planetary catastrophe in the language of symbol and story. They represent our ancestors' attempt to make sense of an unimaginable disaster, a testament to resilience in the face of a changing world. The power of these cultural memories finds startling support in the cold, hard data of the Earth itself. These long, unassuming cylinders of mud hold the entire history of a coastline. Geologists extract them from seabeds and coastal marshes using specialized drills, pulling up core samples that can stretch dozens of feet deep. Each layer of sediment is a time capsule, a page in a planetary diary written in silt and sand. By analyzing the composition of these layers, scientists can read the precise moment a freshwater marsh died and a saltwater bay was born. The transition is stark. Deep down, you find a layer of dark, fibrous peat packed with the roots of terrestrial plants and the shells of freshwater snails. Then, abruptly, that layer ends, sealed beneath a thick deposit of gray marine mud, filled with the shells of saltwater clams and other oceanic life. This change marks the exact time the sea won, flooding the land for good. In the North Sea, cores taken from the seabed known as Doggerbank reveal this very story. The peat layer, formed when this was an inhabited wetland, is consistently capped by marine sediments, providing a physical timeline for the drowning of Doggerland. This data allows researchers to map the sea's advance not in centuries but in specific generations. Another compelling case emerges from the Black Sea. Here, a controversial theory suggests a catastrophic flood around 7,600 years ago, when rising global sea levels burst through the Bosporus Strait, violently transforming a freshwater lake into a saltwater sea. Core samples from the bottom of the Black Sea show a rapid shift from freshwater to marine deposits, supporting the idea of a sudden, dramatic inundation. Could this event be the geological heart of the great flood myths that echo throughout the region? The correlation is powerful. This tangible, physical evidence moves the narrative from legend into the realm of measurable planetary change. It grounds the stories of loss in the slow, undeniable accumulation of mud. By reading these natural archives, we can redraw the ancient maps of our world with astonishing accuracy, reconstructing the paleogeography of continents and the lost pathways of our ancestors. This geological proof of a reshaped world raises a profound question for our own time. If the slow creep of rising seas could erase entire cultures from memory once before, what does that mean for our coastal cities today? The science of paleogeography allows us to peel back the ocean and redraw the ancient world. This is the study of historical landscapes, a discipline that uses geology, climate data, and sophisticated computer modeling to reconstruct the planet as our ancestors knew it. The result is a stunningly different global map, one where coastlines extend hundreds of miles beyond their modern boundaries, revealing vast continental shelves that were once dry, habitable land. These digital recreations are more than just speculative images. They are data-driven windows into a lost geography. One of the most dramatic transformations occurred in Southeast Asia. The model reveals a single, colossal landmass known as Sunderland, formed as the now flooded Sunda Shelf connected the islands of Indonesia, Malaysia, and Borneo to the Asian mainland. This was not a narrow bridge but a subcontinent in its own right, a tropical expanse larger than India, crisscrossed by river systems and likely teeming with life. For the hunter-gatherers who lived there, this was their entire world, a continuous territory that offered immense resources and room to expand. Its subsequent fragmentation into thousands of isolated islands by rising seas would have profoundly reshaped human history, separating populations and creating the complex archipelago we see today. On the other side of the Pacific, another paleogeographic feature tells a different story of human movement. The Bering Land Bridge, or Beringia, appears on these ancient maps as a wide, grassy plain connecting Siberia to Alaska. This was not a barren, icy corridor, but a fertile steppe, a refugium that supported a diverse array of wildlife. It was across this now vanished land that the first human pioneers are believed to have entered the Americas, following the game that sustained them. The sheer scale of these drowned territories is almost impossible to grasp. We are not talking about a few miles of lost coastline, but an area of land roughly equivalent to the entire continent of South America, all of it once prime real estate for human settlement. These were the most fertile and resource-rich environments available, the coastal plains and river valleys where early societies would have naturally thrived. The global sea level rise did not just nibble at the edges of the world, it consumed its very heartlands. These reconstructions are crucial because they transform speculation into a search grid. They give archaeologists a roadmap to the deep, suggesting where we might find the next Pavlopetri or the next Atlit Yam. Every shaded area on these paleogeographic maps represents a potential cradle of civilization, a site of untold stories now resting silently on the continental shelf. Seeing these lost lands rendered in such vivid detail makes their former existence undeniable, forcing us to ask how many chapters of the human story are still missing, waiting beneath the waves to be rediscovered. The same force that reshaped our ancient coastlines is actively at work today, but the clock is now ticking at an unprecedented rate. The profound difference lies in the timescale. The sea level rise that claimed Doggerland and the Persian Gulf Oasis was a geological process, unfolding over thousands of years and allowing for generational adaptation, however difficult. The rise we face now is a direct consequence of human activity, compressing a similar magnitude of change into mere centuries or even decades. As one climate scientist notes, we are currently witnessing a rate of increase that is more than 10 times faster than the average pace at the end of the last ice age. This acceleration strips away the one advantage our ancestors had: time. The creeping shoreline that gave them centuries to relocate their villages now threatens major coastal cities within the span of a single lifetime. This is not a distant future scenario, it is a measurable reality. The same thermal expansion of ocean water and the same melting of land-based ice that filled the North Sea basin are now being supercharged by the greenhouse gases we have released into the atmosphere. The ancient world offers a sobering lesson in resilience, but it also provides a stark warning about the limits of adaptation. Our modern infrastructure, from nuclear power plants to financial centers, is built with a static ocean in mind. A slow retreat is not a viable option for a metropolis like Miami or Shanghai. The challenge is not just the water itself, but the saltwater intrusion that poisoned the wells of Atlit Yam, now threatening the aquifers that supplied drinking water to millions. The storm surges that would have been manageable for a Bronze Age port now pose existential threats to entire nations. Understanding this historical precedent is crucial, not to incite fear, but to illuminate the path forward. Our ancestors were passive witnesses to a changing climate, forced to react. We, however, possess the data, the technology, and the foresight to anticipate and prepare. The silent cities beneath the waves stand as monuments to a world reshaped by nature. The question we must now confront is what legacy we will leave for the future, and what stories will be told of the coasts we call home today. One body of water holds a particularly contentious chapter in this story of rising seas. The Black Sea, a vast inland sea bordered by 6 nations, is at the center of a scientific debate that cuts to the very heart of how we interpret the past. In the late 1990s, 2 geologists, Walter Pittman and William Ryan, proposed a radical idea. They suggested that the Black Sea was once a much smaller, isolated freshwater lake, lying hundreds of feet below the level of the global ocean. Their theory stated that as the Mediterranean Sea rose with glacial meltwater, it eventually breached the natural dam of the Bosporus Strait. What followed, they argued, was not a gentle trickle but a cataclysmic deluge. They envisioned a roaring waterfall 200 times more powerful than Niagara Falls, pouring salt water into the freshwater basin with unstoppable force. This event, they calculated, would have raised the Black Sea's shoreline by as much as 6 inches per day, flooding over 60,000 square miles of land in less than a single year. For any communities living along that ancient, fertile shoreline, it would have been a terrifying and rapid end to their world. The evidence for this dramatic event is etched into the seabed itself. Core samples extracted from the bottom of the Black Sea reveal a sharp, distinct boundary in the sediment. Below this line lies a layer of dark, compacted soil, the kind that forms on dry land or in a freshwater environment. Within this ancient soil, researchers have found the shells of freshwater mollusks and even the stumps of submerged trees. Directly above this layer is a sudden shift to gray marine mud, filled with the shells of saltwater species. This transition appears to be geologically instantaneous, marking the moment the saltwater arrived. For proponents of the deluge hypothesis, this is the smoking gun, the physical proof of a rapid and devastating flood that permanently transformed the ecosystem. They suggest this single, traumatic event could have forced a massive displacement of the early farming communities living around the lake's rim, sending waves of refugees fleeing into the interior of Europe and Anatolia. This diaspora, they argue, could have carried agricultural knowledge and technologies with them, seeding the rapid spread of the Neolithic lifestyle across the continent. Yet this compelling narrative is fiercely contested. Many archaeologists and geologists argue that the flooding was far more gradual. They point to more recent studies of the Bosporus Strait itself, suggesting it was not a solid wall but a complex, pre-carved valley that would have allowed for a slower, more protracted inflow of seawater over many decades or even centuries. Critics contend that the sediment data can be interpreted differently, and that the transition from fresh to saltwater, while significant, may not have been as violently sudden as the deluge theory suggests. They question whether a single event could have had the profound cultural impact proposed, arguing that the archaeological record in Europe shows a more complex and patchwork pattern of agricultural adoption that does not neatly align with a sudden migrant wave. The debate remains unresolved, a careful tug-of-war between catastrophic and gradualist interpretations of the same geological facts. Whether the end came in a single terrible year or over the span of 100 summers, the story of the Black Sea's transformation is a powerful reminder that the process of sea level rise is rarely a simple, uniform line on a graph. It is a story of local geology, of specific thresholds being crossed, and of landscapes changing forever. The controversy itself enriches our understanding, forcing us to look more carefully at the evidence and to appreciate the complex interplay between a changing planet and the human communities that call it home. This single, disputed flood, real or exaggerated, continues to shape how we see the spread of civilization and the powerful, lasting echoes of our planet's turbulent past. The cold, dark waters of the Baltic Sea conceal a collection of forms that defy easy explanation. Among the most famous are the circular stone arrangements discovered off the coast of Sweden, massive rings of boulders resting silently on the seabed. These are not random scatterings. The stones are carefully positioned, forming geometric structures like ship-like outlines and precise circles that suggest deliberate human effort. Their scale and order immediately bring to mind the Neolithic monuments built across Europe, like a sunken Stonehenge waiting to be decoded. The location of these formations, on what would have been dry land thousands of years ago, fuels the theory that this is the remnants of a submerged Stone Age settlement, a fishing community that built its ritual and practical structures on a shoreline now lost to the sea. Yet the Baltic seabed holds even more bewildering secrets. Sonar scans have revealed larger, more bizarre objects, including a massive, disc-shaped formation that some quickly dubbed a crashed UFO. The imagery shows a strange, cylindrical object with what appear to be trailing skid marks, lying isolated on the bottom. The initial public excitement was immense, with theories ranging from ancient alien visitors to a secret Nazi weapon lost during the war. The mystery deepens with reports of electrical equipment malfunctioning near the object, though these accounts are often anecdotal and difficult to verify. To separate sensational claims from scientific reality, we must turn to the geologists and oceanographers who have studied the area. Their analysis often points to the powerful, sculpting force of the last ice age. The entire Baltic region was ground zero for continental glaciers, which dragged, piled, and deposited immense quantities of rock and sediment. As these glaciers retreated, they left behind moraines and glacial erratics, natural formations that can take on surprisingly geometric shapes. The large, disc-like anomaly, for instance, is considered by many scientists to be a glacial deposit, a large nodule of volcanic rock like basalt that was left behind by the ice. The strange trail behind it could be the result of the object dragging along the seabed during an underwater landslide. Other natural processes also offer plausible explanations. Methane gas bubbling up from decaying organic matter on the seafloor can create circular pits and uplift patterns that look engineered. The unique chemical and biological environment of the Baltic, with its low oxygen levels and distinctive microbial life, can also cause unusual crusts and concretions to form on rocks, creating surfaces that appear oddly smooth or manufactured. While many of the Baltic Sea's strange shapes have likely been formed by nature's hand, the possibility remains that some features are anthropogenic, the work of human hands. The stone circles, in particular, continue to intrigue archaeologists. They could be the remains of fishing traps, ceremonial sites, or burial monuments from a time when the area was a fertile coastal plain. The true challenge lies in proving it, as the cold, murky waters and layers of sediment make extensive excavation and dating a monumental task. These Baltic Sea mysteries serve as a powerful reminder that our ocean floors are still vast, unexplored galleries of the unknown, where the line between a natural masterpiece and a human relic remains beautifully blurred. From these enigmatic cold northern waters, our search for lost worlds takes us to a tropical paradise hiding its own profound secrets. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami brought a strange and temporary gift to the coast of Mahabalipuram. As the sea pulled back in a massive, unnatural withdrawal, it unveiled a secret it had held for centuries. There, exposed on the suddenly dry seabed, were the clear outlines of man-made structures, rows of stone blocks, and the foundations of ancient shrines. For a brief moment, the ocean itself confirmed the truth of a local legend known as the Seven Pagodas. The folklore spoke of a magnificent city with 7 glorious temples, a place of such pride that the gods sent a great flood to swallow 6 of them, leaving only the single shore temple we see today. The tsunami's revelation was a stunning, real-world echo of that ancient story. This was not the end of the investigation, but a dramatic beginning. Marine archaeologists, guided by this living oral history, began systematic dives off the coast. Their work uncovered a breathtaking underwater landscape. They found a massive, exquisitely carved stone lion, a symbol of power and protection, resting on the sandy bottom. Nearby lay the remains of smaller shrines and walls, all part of a sprawling temple complex that clearly extended far beyond the modern shoreline. These were not random stones, but the deliberate architecture of a lost spiritual center. The confirmation at Mahabalipuram stands as a powerful lesson in listening to the whispers of the past. It demonstrates that folklore is not always pure fantasy, but can be a container for historical truth, a cultural memory of a real geological event passed down through countless generations. This successful merging of myth and science invites us to look at other enduring legends with fresh eyes. What other stories of sunken cities, now dismissed as mere fable, might be waiting for their moment of discovery beneath the waves? The silent cities of the deep are no longer content to whisper. A new generation of explorers is listening with tools of unprecedented sensitivity, transforming underwater archaeology from a slow, painstaking craft into a vast, data-driven science. At the forefront are autonomous underwater vehicles, or OVE. These are not remote-controlled submarines but intelligent, self-guided robots programmed to glide through the abyss for days on their own power. Freed from the tether of a surface ship and the limitations of human endurance, they can sweep across immense stretches of seabed, their sonar systems painting the darkness with millions of precise acoustic pulses. The result is a point cloud of data so dense it can be rendered into a three-dimensional map of the ocean floor, revealing details as fine as a single amphora or the subtle outline of a foundation stone. But mapping the territory is only the first step. The true revolution lies in interpreting this flood of information. This is where artificial intelligence enters the picture. The sheer volume of sonar data from a single AUV survey would take a human analyst months, even years, to scrutinize. An AI, however, can be trained to recognize patterns. It learns to distinguish the chaotic randomness of a natural rockfall from the telling geometry of a human-made wall. It can flag a perfect right angle or a series of parallel lines hidden in the visual noise, anomalies that would be easy for a tired human eye to overlook. This powerful synergy is already yielding results. In the Mediterranean, projects are using AUV swarms to map entire ancient harbor systems in a fraction of the traditional time. In the deep waters of the Black Sea, robotic vehicles have documented shipwrecks lying in perfect preservation, their wooden hulls untouched for millennia in the oxygen-depleted depths. These technologies are not just speeding up discovery, they are opening entirely new frontiers, allowing us to probe canyons and continental shelves that were once considered forever out of reach. This technological leap, however, carries a profound responsibility. When an AI identifies a potential settlement or a robot descends to a pristine site, we are presented with a choice. Do we excavate or do we preserve? The power to uncover brings the duty to protect. These submerged sites are often the final resting places of past communities, and their artifacts are part of a fragile underwater ecosystem. The same tools that allow us to find these lost cities so efficiently also demand that we approach them with greater care and respect than ever before. This incredible new capacity to see into the deep forces us to confront a difficult question, not just of what we can find, but of how we should protect the stories we are now able to hear. But these sunken cities are more than just archaeological sites. They are fragile pages in a book we are only beginning to read. The same waters that have preserved them for millennia now expose them to a new wave of threat, not from nature but from human hands. The moment a lost city is found, a race begins between preservation and plunder. On one side are archaeologists dedicated to meticulous study, where every fragment of pottery is mapped in 3 dimensions to tell the full story of a community. On the other are commercial treasure hunters who often see these sites only for their marketable valuables like gold coins or intact artifacts. The difference in approach is stark. An archaeologist might spend weeks carefully excavating a single amphora to understand the trade routes it represents, while a treasure hunter could rip it from the seabed, destroying its context forever and erasing the chapter of history it held. This is the central ethical dilemma of underwater cultural heritage. The drive to recover beautiful objects must be balanced against the irreversible loss of knowledge that occurs when a site is disturbed. To address this global challenge, an international agreement was created, the UNESCO 2001 Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage. This framework establishes basic principles urging that in situ preservation or leaving a site on the seabed should be considered as a first option. It promotes scientific investigation over commercial exploitation and encourages cooperation between nations, yet the convention is not universally adopted, and its enforcement in the vast expanse of international waters remains incredibly difficult. This legal gray area fuels ongoing debates. Who truly has the right to a sunken city lying outside any national border? Is it the company that funds the expensive recovery operation, the nation with the closest cultural ties, or all of humanity as our shared past? These questions become even more complex when a site holds deep spiritual meaning for living communities. The thrill of discovery is undeniable, but it carries a profound responsibility. Every time we choose to raise an artifact, we are making a permanent decision. The object is removed from the unique, cold, dark environment that preserved it, and it begins a new, often rapid process of decay unless it receives immediate and costly conservation. This is why many archaeologists now advocate for creating virtual museums, using three-dimensional modeling and photography to share these sites with the world while leaving the physical remains undisturbed on the ocean floor for future generations with more advanced technology to study. The race to protect these silent cities is a quiet one, fought with international law, advanced conservation, and a shared commitment to memory. It reminds us that our curiosity about the past must be guided by a deep respect for the legacy we are only just beginning to understand. A profound metamorphosis takes place in the silent halls of these sunken cities. Over centuries, the stone that once echoed with human voices becomes a foundation for an entirely new world, a living tapestry woven by the sea itself. This is the story of how places of profound human loss are reborn as cradles for marine life. The process begins almost imperceptibly. Microscopic spores of algae and the larvae of tiny corals, adrift in the ocean currents, find a purchase on the rough surfaces of a tumbled wall or a forgotten statue. They are the first pioneers settling on this strange new territory. As these initial colonizers establish themselves, they create a complex, three-dimensional landscape where none existed before. Sponges cling to shaded crevices, filtering nutrients from the water. Sea anemones unfold their tentacled flowers on sunlit marble. This gradual accumulation of life transforms the stark geometry of human architecture into a complex, living structure. What was once a palace courtyard or a city gate becomes an artificial reef, a magnet for biodiversity. The new habitat soon draws in larger residents. Schools of small, shimmering fish dart through what were once doorways, finding shelter from predators in the nooks and crannies. An octopus might make its den in an ancient ceramic pot, and lobsters patrol the bases of stone columns now encrusted with tube worms. The very streets designed for human traffic become bustling highways for marine creatures. This biological succession, from bare stone to a thriving ecosystem, creates a powerful and poignant duality. A site that marks an ending for one civilization becomes a vibrant beginning for another. It is a testament to nature's deep resilience, its irrepressible drive to reclaim spaces and weave new stories from old bones. The cycle is both beautiful and humbling, a quiet reminder that life is a continuous thread, forever finding a way to renew itself even in the face of what was lost. These silent cities beneath the waves speak to a deep and unsettling truth about our own place in history. They are not just collections of sunken stones, but monuments to the impermanence of human achievement. Every society, from the hunter-gatherers of Doggerland to the engineers of Rome, built their world with the belief it would last, yet the planet had its own, slower timeline. This long view of history offers a humbling perspective. It reminds us that the ground beneath our feet and the coastlines we call home are not permanent fixtures, but have been dramatically reshaped before and will be again. Our own cities, our own infrastructures, are part of this same continuous story of adaptation and change. The real lesson from the deep is not one of inevitable doom, but of profound resilience. Our ancestors faced a changing climate with nothing but their knowledge, their communities, and their will to survive. They retreated, they adapted, and they carried their stories with them, weaving their loss into the very fabric of their culture. Their legacy is a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure even the most fundamental shifts in their world. This shared history connects us directly to them. We are the descendants of those who persevered, who learned to live with a rising sea. Their experience challenges us to look at our own relationship with the planet. Are we building with an understanding of this dynamic Earth? Or are we constructing our own modern versions of Baiae on vulnerable shores? The fate of these lost civilizations compels us to think about the legacy we are creating right now. What stories will future generations tell about the cities we have built? Will they speak of our foresight, or will they be diving among our silent ruins, wondering why we did not listen to the whispers from the past? This reflection on our shared vulnerability and capacity for resilience is the most vital gift these underwater worlds offer, guiding our steps toward the future. The next great lost city is not a single name on a map, but an entire continent of ghosts. Our future discoveries lie across the vast, submerged plains that were once the thriving heartlands of humanity. One of the most promising frontiers is the Sunderland Shelf in Southeast Asia, a sunken subcontinent larger than India. When this land was dry, it was a lush tropical paradise crisscrossed by mighty river systems. This was not a marginal territory but a central stage for early human migration and settlement. Finding evidence of communities here could fundamentally alter our understanding of the peopling of the region and the development of early seafaring technologies. The scale of this lost world is almost beyond comprehension, holding the potential to reveal societies as complex and significant as any we know from dry land. Equally compelling are the drowned river valleys of the Australian continental shelf. These were not barren coasts but fertile, well-watered corridors teeming with life. For the first Australians, these valleys were home, a deeply connected part of their country for tens of thousands of years. Their oral histories are rich with memories of this lost coastline, stories of the sea rising to claim familiar lands. Finding the physical evidence of these ancient campsites and sacred places would provide a powerful, tangible link to one of the world's oldest continuous cultures, bridging the profound gap between deep memory and material proof. And we must return to the very cradle, the submerged coastlines of the Persian Gulf. The theory of a lost oasis that spawned the Sumerian civilization is a breathtaking narrative, but it remains a theory without the conclusive evidence of a major settlement. Locating a city from that initial diaspora, a foundational site built by refugees from the flooded paradise, would be one of the most significant archaeological finds in history, literally pinpointing a source of civilization itself. Uncovering these worlds will require more than just ambition. It will demand a new era of international cooperation and technological ingenuity. The challenges are immense, from the sheer depth and pressure of these sites to the logistical and political complexities of exploring international waters. The future of this search hinges on a global commitment to shared heritage. We will need fleets of autonomous underwater vehicles working in synchronized swarms, mapping entire continental shelves with a resolution that can distinguish a stone tool from a pebble. We will require advanced chemical sensors that can detect the faint ghost of a human settlement in the seabed chemistry, and sophisticated dating techniques that can accurately age materials recovered from the deep. This is not a task for a single nation or a lone research vessel, but for a unified human effort. The potential reward is a complete rewriting of our shared history book. Every one of these submerged landscapes is a missing chapter in the human story, a blank page waiting to be filled with the lives, innovations, and journeys of our ancestors. The next great discovery is indeed just over the horizon, hidden not in some remote jungle, but beneath the familiar blue surface of the sea. With our eyes on this future of discovery, the final and most crucial step is to understand what all these sunken stones are truly telling us about our own world. A single discipline cannot tell this story alone. The true narrative of these lost worlds emerges only when we weave together the distinct threads of geology, archaeology, and mythology. Each field provides a different kind of evidence, and when braided together, they form a rope strong enough to pull a sunken past back into the light. Geology offers the grand timeline, the slow, physical clockwork of our planet. It gives us the core samples from the North Sea that mark the precise moment Doggerland's freshwater marshes were sealed beneath marine mud. This is the objective framework, the when and the how of the global transformation. But geology cannot tell us who walked those drowned plains. That story is written in the archaeology, in the finely crafted harpoon points hauled up in fishing nets, and the stone foundations of Atlit Yam resting quietly on the seabed. This material evidence puts people back on the landscape, showing us their tools, their homes, and their daily struggles. Yet, even these tangible finds do not reveal what the experience meant to those who lived through it. For the human context, we must turn to mythology. The ancient Sanskrit epics that sing of Dwarka's golden towers plunging into the ocean are not mere fantasy. They are the cultural memory of a profound loss, the long echo of a real geological event that was so traumatic it was woven into the sacred identity of a people. The story passed down becomes as crucial a data point as the stone block recovered from the sea. Look at how these threads intertwine. The geological record confirms a rapid flooding of the Black Sea basin, while the archaeological record shows a dispersal of Neolithic peoples into Europe around the same time. The mythological record, in turn, echoes with great flood stories from the Epic of Gilgamesh to the tale of Noah. No single piece of evidence is conclusive on its own, but together they form a compelling, holistic picture of a world reshaped by water and human resilience. This interdisciplinary synthesis is our most powerful lens for viewing the deep past. It allows us to see the people behind the pottery, the fear and wonder behind the folklore, and the planetary forces behind the rising tide. By listening to the geologist, the archaeologist, and the storyteller simultaneously, we stop just collecting data and start understanding history. This integrated perspective does more than illuminate the past. It equips us to face the questions that these silent cities ultimately pose about our own future. These silent stones resting on the ocean floor are far more than historical footnotes. They are profound narratives about our enduring relationship with a powerful and changing planet. Our journey has taken us from the drowned plains of Doggerland to the legendary shores of Dwarka, connecting the slow grind of geology to the lasting echoes of cultural memory. These stories speak to the fragility of any civilization built at the water's edge, yet they also celebrate the incredible resilience of the human spirit when confronted with environmental transformation. The people of these lost worlds did not simply vanish, they adapted, they moved, and they carried their stories with them, weaving their loss into the fabric of their identity. As we now face our own era of rising seas, these sunken cities stand as both a sobering warning and a deep well of inspiration. They remind us that foresight and adaptability are our greatest tools. Thank you for diving into this mystery with us. If this exploration of humanity's forgotten chapters resonated with you, please subscribe for more journeys into the lost corners of our world. We would love to hear which of these lost civilizations fascinates you most in the comments below.